The word of the Lord.
Our first reading for this Sunday comes from the prophet Malachi. Reading through this portion of the prophet should make us tremble because it is addressed to the whole people, but especially to those who have some positions of responsibility or even leadership in communities and peoples. Here we have Malachi reminding the people Israel that they, as the covenanted people, had a special role to play in the world and in history, and it is to give glory to the name of God. What a mission! Through us, the name of God will be glorified by others. That's why God reminds Israel through Malachi, keep that to your heart. Keep that in mind. Do not forget your mission of glorifying my name. And you will lead others to such a glorification of my name. But that will happen if you, my people, will remain faithful to me. If you will not break away from our covenant. For the breaking of the covenant with God meant forgetfulness of God. When I forget God, I drift away from God, I ignore, I neglect, I even deliberately throw away our covenant relationship. And when that happens, the name of God is removed from my consciousness and from my mission. Now, the prophet Malachi expresses the dismay of God to see the people, Israel, and its leaders forgetting the covenant and forgetting the name of God. Instead of glorifying the name of God, it seems that other names are being glorified. The names of false gods and even their own names. Instead of proclaiming the name of God, it is our name that is being proclaimed. Now, what also adds to the anger of God manifested through the prophets Malachi is this. Through the false instruction of Israel and through the wrong example of Israel, other peoples are led astray. Other peoples don't discover the ways of God, and these people also don't get to know the name of God. So, God is not only angered by the forgetfulness of His people, of the covenant and of His name. God is also angered that other people are misled by those who are supposed to make God known and to make the glory of God the goal of life. That's why I said this prophecy is directed not only to the whole people, but those who have a special role in guiding, in instructing other people. They have a special responsibility of making known the Word of God and the name of God. I'm a teacher myself. And imagine the responsibility that a teacher has when instead of leading others to good, you, through your wrong instruction, lead them to evil or to falsehood. Dear parents, dear teachers, dear leaders of communities, the people in the media, the artists, we are all teachers. And God is expecting us to lead others to Him and to lead others to the right paths so that they can glorify God. Are we leading them to God? Or have we forgotten the name of God? Or are we just promoting ourselves? That's why the prophet Malachi reminds the Israelites, don't we have only one Father? Have you forgotten that we are under one Father? That we are under one covenant with Him? How come? We are a fragmented people. We fight each other and we go our separate ways. We fabricate our own teachings and instructions. Are we not under the one covenant, under the one God and the one Father of all? So, recognizing the true God, the one Father, and the one covenant will lead us hopefully to fidelity to God and fidelity to our mission to lead people to God.
Word of the Lord.
Our second reading for this Sunday comes from the first letter of Paul to the Thessalonians. We have been reflecting on the responsibility of the people Israel from the prophet Malachi and its leaders to be faithful to God of the covenant so that they could instruct all the nations about God, His name, and to lead them to glorify God. Instructing people so that they would get to know God. But somehow Israel failed in that mission. But we have some sort of a redemption story, a redeeming story in the second reading. We find St. Paul, the model instructor, the model apostle, clear about his mission. He tells the Thessalonians that he would have given his life for them. His whole life will be devoted to them. And what did he bring to the Thessalonians? Not his word, not his name, not anything about himself. What St. Paul brought to the Thessalonians was the gospel of Jesus Christ. It is Jesus whom he preaches, not himself. It is not his own words that he conveys. It is the word of God, the gospel, the good news that only God in his grace and mercy could communicate to others. And St. Paul is very clear about his mission. He knows that he was called by God to be an apostle to the Gentiles, to be the bearer of good news, to be the instructor, the teacher of those who do not belong to the chosen people of God. He was clear about that. If we use another terminology, St. Paul was a person of a covenant relationship with Jesus Christ. And this clear relationship with Jesus, his covenant with Jesus, made him the servant of Jesus. He will preach Jesus and nobody else, not himself. That's why he also thanked the Thessalonians, because the Thessalonians received the gospel not as human word, not as the word of Paul, not as the word of someone who simply wanted to share his own ideas or his own inventions. No, St. Paul was very happy. He was very glad that the Thessalonians accepted his teaching for what it truly is, the Word of God, working in the power of the Spirit. So here we have a double reason to rejoice. We have St. Paul, in a way, reversing what we heard in Malachi. St. Paul being true to the covenant with God, being true to his mission, leading others not to himself, but to Jesus. Because it was the word of Jesus that he shared with the Thessalonians. But we also rejoice at the grace received by the Thessalonians. They did not become enamored of St. Paul. They did not simply admired the wisdom of St. Paul. They were not, in a way, attached to the talent of St. Paul. They saw that the words of St. Paul were really spirit and power coming from God. So I am appealing to our instructors, our teachers, especially teachers of the faith, including myself. Let us not draw people to ourselves, but to the good news of Jesus. And I appeal also to you who listen to us. Sometimes you run after us and you forget the true gospel. It is not our human wisdom, but it is the Word of God in its power and its spirit.
Gospel of the Lord.
Our gospel for this Sunday comes from the 23rd chapter of St. Matthew. We have a wonderful lesson in our readings for today. In the first reading from Malachi, we see how the people Israel and their leaders had to be faithful to God, only to God, and to the covenant with God. For if they are not faithful to God anymore and to their covenant, then it is not the name of God that they proclaim, and they mislead other people and other nations instead of instructing them so that they could get to know God and glorify God. They're led astray. So the importance of recognizing the one Father and being faithful to the covenant with God so that our mission as the bearer of the good news will be maintained. The redeeming factor is in the second reading. We have St. Paul very clear about his mission because he was also clear about the one who has called him to a covenant relationship and whose name he should proclaim. So he did not proclaim himself. Only Jesus, the good news of Jesus. That was his main and only concern in his mission to the Thessalonians. And thanks be to God, the Thessalonians also accepted not Paul, not Paul's wisdom, but the gospel of Jesus as power, as spirit. Beautiful. Now, we have in the gospel a more complete picture of what Jesus expects of us, his disciples. He tells his disciples and the crowds that they should listen to the scribes and the Pharisees who have succeeded Moses as teachers. They should listen, they should do and observe what these teachers tell them to do. Okay? Because these are not words from the Pharisees and the scribes. The words that they proclaim are really God's word, communicated through Moses. And it is not just the words, but the authority of the words coming from Moses and his authority. Well and good. So Jesus cannot be accused of undermining the authority of the scribes and the Pharisees, of undermining their rightful succession to the position of Moses as teacher of the law and with authority at that. No, but what was the concern of Jesus? Here we go beyond Malachi and St. Paul. Jesus was not content with a teacher's fidelity to the original teaching coming from God and the authority that accompanies such teaching. Jesus is looking for another type of instruction and authority, and therefore another form of fidelity to God. And what is it? Action. Action in harmony with one's teaching. If I were a Pharisee or a scribe, I really would feel hurt and insulted by the words of Jesus. He said, okay, listen to them, hear their teachings, observe their teachings, but do not follow their example. So Jesus is talking about another type of instruction, not just verbal instruction, but the instruction that comes through deeds, the instruction that comes through the example or lack of example. The words of the Pharisees had weight, and they are bold according to Jesus, because they are the words of God communicated through Moses. So weighty and bold. But when Jesus matches the words of the Pharisees and scribes with their actions, he says their actions are few. The Pharisees and scribes demand so many actions on their hearers. But when Jesus looks at them, he notices that they do not perform the very actions that they are demanding of others. So they are putting on others a tremendous weight, but they do not lift their finger. So they are very good in teaching, but they do not follow consistently in action, in deeds, in gesture, what they themselves taught. And so they're the first ones to violate, or at least ignore the very teachings that have come down to them from God through Moses. And worse, here you hear the echo of Malachi. The scribes and Pharisees were teaching with the authority of Moses in order to be noticed, in order to exalt themselves. The motivation for the preaching is not the covenant with God. The motivation is for me to appear important, for me to be known, for me to be adulated, for me to be recognized, for me to be called rabbi, for me to be called teacher. And Jesus condemns this attitude. That is not the authority of Moses. So the authority of Moses is not just manifested in the teachings per se. Even in the motivation of the one teaching, we should acquire true authority. Authority that comes from consistency of our words with our action, and the motivation that is pure. It is not myself that I preach, and I do not use preaching in order to promote myself. I do this in humble service. I am not a type of person that will make use of preaching in order to become famous and to exalt myself. This is the type of motivation that Jesus expects in teachers, in leaders, in those who guide other people. It is not enough that our words acquire authority. It is important that our witness to the same teachings would affirm the authority of the Word of God that we bring. I am appealing to spiritual and religious preachers. We are the first to be challenged by this. But I'm appealing also to those who preach in their own ways, those in media, the parents, the teachers, those who are very visible as leaders. Our words may be true, but in the end, especially in our present day culture, especially of the young, They're looking for witnesses and holy people, and only then will they truly believe what they have heard. You know, it really consoled me once to have a conversation with a parent. This person is very religious, but not in an overbearing way. When you look at him, he's a regular person of the world. No, he enjoys good food. He enjoys the regular things that people enjoy. No, he is not religious in the pious type, of the word. No, but he knows how to handle his religiosity without making himself appear that, oh, he is a cut above the others. No. But one day I was talking with him, and I was pleasantly surprised that he was taking his spirituality seriously. But this is the thing that really hit me pleasantly too. He said, I now have 3 teenagers, and I teach them a lot. Not only their homeworks, no? Teaching them English or history or math, no? But also teaching them about the faith. But one thing, he said, Bishop, that I'm worried about is this. Once my daughter told me, said, Daddy, you taught me this, but last night I was observing you. I don't think you are following what you taught me. And this parent got afraid. He told me, Bishop, I might lose my authority. My children, now acquiring independence, they have a different relationship to me now. When they were children, whatever I said carried weight. They just obeyed. But now they're looking for something else in me. The consistency of my action with my teaching. And I told him, oh, you are on your path to holiness. Maintain this fear and maintain this search. It is our struggle as priests, and I am very happy it is your own struggle as a parent. Let us be one in this. There is only one teacher, only one Father, the one in heaven. Let us be faithful to Him and let His word and His good example be ours to share. The word has been exposed. Let us now fulfill it.